So we've gone through our mobility work. We started with some soft tissue correction, which may or may not be needed, as we discussed in the last post. Depends on the quality of the tissue. Some people may not need it. Other people find dozens of trigger points that take a while to work out. It just depends on how the body's learned to stabilize over time. Then we've gone into postural work. Now we have a new range of motion, but in order to keep that range of motion and over time teach our central nervous system how to make sure that it maintains that range of motion, we need to focus on our stability. There's a really big term right now, reflexive stability. When you hear that, just think of it as automatic. If I'm going to move, if I want to move my leg, everything else has to stabilize to allow that leg to now move around my trunk. I can't sit there and consciously make, the many dozens of muscles contract in time and release as needed in order to make that limb move. Happens automatically. There's a phrase in the FMS system, proximal stability creates distal mobility. All that means is proximal means nearer to the center of the body, like you think of the core. Think of the core as a canister. Top is the diaphragm, bottom is the pelvic floor, and then we have various musculature around the front, around the sides, wrapping, so it creates this canister. So proximal is near to that core. The closer I get to that, I'm more proximal to the body. Distal is away from the center of the body. So if we have good stability here in our core, canister unit, whatever you want to call it, it's going to create mobility away from our body, such as in our limbs, neck, etc. Once I have my mobility, let's start stabilizing it. Really quick drill. Oftentimes, since we're focusing on that superficial back line, tight hamstrings and tight calves are a result of pelvis kind of being out of position, my pelvic floor not functioning properly. I no longer have that proximal stability, so my distal mobility starts to suffer as a result. Maybe there's a little bit of a weight shift. If you stand up nice and tall and just barely lean a few degrees forward, you'll really start to feel your calves fire to stabilize you. So if you're out of whack all the time, if your pelvis is out of position and your weight shift is improper, posture's bad. Yes, posture does matter. All those, lectures you guys as a kid were true. If that is occurring regularly, chronic tight hamstrings, tight calves, etc., body's out of position, tight neck, it occurs everywhere. It's not just relegated to legs, but we're going to focus on that superficial back line. So we've mobilized. I have a certain range of motion. Now I'm going to cement that with a quick stability drill. We do variations of this kind of work to really activate our pelvic floor, make sure our pelvis is in optimal position. The band is just to ensure that my pelvis stays in the right place and everything else is going to orient itself around that stable pelvis. And to keep it stable, all the right stabilizers have to fire properly to allow for my distal mobility, in this case in my legs. And doing that stability work on top of the mobility work, you'll often find that it's really it may even increase the range of motion if there's a really chronic area that's locked up. So, that's the second step in our FMS movement correction. We're going to finish with our motor control next.